Have you ever wondered why the Watchtower or the governing body members themselves, why they still walk free of guilt and liability, all of the problems out there in their organization with CSA? Let's talk about this. Two elders charged with child sexual assault, a 15-year-old girl, and a Pennsylvania Attorney General document that spells it out. But somehow, Watchtower, the headquarters, they still walk free. The prosecutor says elders didn't just fail to protect a child, they approved a 30-year-old man to date her. And that was in the Pennsylvania case. The victim, known as JR, has already been assaulted by Elder Norman Ailes Guerra before meeting Abino Valentine Moss. And we've all probably heard of these cases. Well, the elders allegedly knew about all of this, and they gave permission for this to happen in their congregation. So when shepherds guard the wolves, the flock never stood a chance. Inside every congregation, abuse reports are filtered through a manual, not through police. Shepherd the flock of God. This manual instructs elders to call their legal department immediately. And the first call is to their lawyers, not to law enforcement. So when the first number dialed is legal, justice never gets a call. So here's a question. Why haven't prosecutors gone higher? To the men in Warwick who wrote those rules. Why? Well, reason number one, the legal firewall. Each Kingdom Hall is a separate non-profit. The Watchtower Bible and Tract Society calls itself a publisher, not an employer. Elders, they're volunteers. And when abuse surfaces, they say, they don't work for us. It's a legal firewall built out of paperwork and souls. Now, reason number two, the two witness rule. Unless two people saw the same acts, elders take no action. Folks, that might work for stolen goats, but not for child abuse. And we gave that video here the other day about Hines and how she went from elder to elder, even governing body member, and no one paid attention. Why? Because Briggs said he didn't do it. There was not two witnesses. It never went to the police. She never got help. So the policy, it doesn't break the law, but it bends it. The elders break the law, but their policy bends the law. Now, reason number three, clergy privilege. Anything said during spiritual council is confidential. Elders are told to call the Watchtower legal before the police. Folks, that's not faith, that's legal engineering. That's legal engineering. Calling Watchtower before you call the police on a crime. You see, if someone breaks into their Kingdom Hall, they call the police immediately. They don't call the Watchtower lawyers for instructions for that crime, but for a CSA crime, they call Watchtower's legal department. That's engineering, folks. So reason number four, state versus federal. It has limits. A state attorney general can only act inside the state laws, the state lines. Watchtower, on the other hand, it operates across borders. Until the U.S. Justice Department links all these state cases into one federal pattern, the organization, it stays untouched, while local elders, they'll take the fall. So that's kind of what has to happen. Now let's look at this California case here a while ago. Truth at $4,000 a day. You remember that? In California, the judges ordered Watchtower to turn over its internal abuse files. Watchtower refused. So the court fined them $4,000 for every day of non-compliance. And it worked out to be in millions in penalties. That's not persecution. That's defiance of a court order. Obstruction of justice. That's what that is. So when truth cost $4,000 a day, you start to wonder what's in those files. Okay, so we're going to talk now about RICO. RICO. This is the law that could reach them being Watchtower, Warwick, the 11 men in New York, however you want to put it. RICO. If a single state can't touch the trunk, the Watchtower, the federal government can under RICO. Now, RICO is that the Racketeer Influenced and Corruption Organizations Act, passed in 1970 to break the Mafia. RICO lets prosecutors charge an entire enterprise if they can prove a pattern of criminal conduct directed from the top. It took down New York's 5 families, and it could one day apply to any organization that uses hierarchy to hide crime. So let's look at the Watchtower and the spiritual Mafia. Let's see how this all works. The Mafia used fear and loyalty to protect the boss. Watchtower uses faith and disfellowshipping to do the same. And they also use fear because you're always afraid of getting disfellowshipped for saying the wrong thing or for speaking up. Now, at the top, you got the governing body. Below them are the branches. The branches are the overseers, the elders, all the top people. Now, orders flow from the top down, from the Watchtower down, through the shepherding the flock book mainly, but through many letters and private letters that we don't know about. So they come from the Watchtower. But if you have a question about a letter or a decision, it's silence. You got to stay silent. Silence flows from the bottom up in Watchtower. You can't talk. So when victims talk, they're shunned. When victims talk. And when police call, lawyers answer. You don't get the elders answering, they get lawyers to answer. And when courts demand records, fines become the cost of obedience. It's a spiritual mess. It's a spiritual mess. It's the code of silence when you're baptized. The code of silence when you're baptized. They might as well have that in there. So the money trail, Ireland's Mina group. Let's talk about that. Every enterprise needs a financial front. In Ireland, company records show a network of charities and property bodies known collectively as the Mina group, all owned by the Watchtower somehow. Different names, overlapping directors, and millions in real estate. Perfectly legal, but structured to shield assets and liability. So the Mafia hid cash in restaurants. Watchtower hides it in corporations all over the world. Now, to be clear, These entities are not accused of crimes. This is a comparison of organizational structure, not motive. Now we're going to talk a little further. The US connection, CCJW, what's going on? It's a pattern. It continues here in America and the US. In October 2025, a branch announcement instructed all US congregations to send donations to a different corporation, as if they're going to get sued or taken down. The Watchtower, that's where they were sending stuff. Well, this new corporation is the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, or CCJW. And they call it probably part of something they're trying to organize, a simplification program. Who knows? It replaces the Watchtower and Bible and Tract Society as a recipient of funds. So they're no longer getting money. Well, the same announcement outlined confidential Amazon business accounts for Kingdom Halls, not illegal, but it shows how money is centralized under the new corporate names while remaining under the same leadership. So different continents all over the world, but it's the same congregation, just under another logo. So the global pattern. From Pennsylvania to California, from Ireland to the UK, the pattern repeats. One set of policies, many legal faces. The result is the same, an organization that protects itself better than it protects its people. Now, we're going to conclude here with what love could look like in the JW organization. Watchtower is clearly protecting the money, not the victims. And when their own elders face charges, well, they get thrown under the bus. Watchtower's not taking any responsibility. It's a system that forces men to handle criminal cases in-house, and it creates an environment ripe for abuse. Now, the loving solution would be simple. Make every elder responsible to report all crimes to the police, especially child sexual abuse, and let the trained professionals investigate and support the victims. They have the training to do so. That's what love looks like. Protecting the people, not the policy. Imagine a faith where elders guide spiritually, but they don't control you legally, or they don't get into your bedroom. There's no more shunning. All of those things have gone away. And you go to the Kingdom Hall, and there's a group of elders who smile, and they just guide you spiritually. Mostly with Jesus, because we're living in the time Jesus talked about. But imagine a faith where honesty replaces fear. You're never going to be afraid of getting disfellowship for speaking out or having a question or reading a news article on something. And imagine a place where compassion replaces compliance. They have this elders book, but it's all narrowed down. But it's not about that. It's about compassion. And love is only mentioned just a handful of times in the elders book. But in the old elders book, judicial was 337 times. It's a judicial book. It's not a book about love. But imagine a faith where it was about love. What if love was in it 337 times and judicial was in there 3 or 4 times? It would be a game changer. Well, folks, all we can do is imagine. Will it happen? I don't think so. I don't think so. They're too far gone. They're too far gone in hiding their money. They're hiding it in Ireland. They're now conglomerating all the donations into another company in the US, CCJW. It's about the money. It's not about the victim. But it's okay to imagine, and that's what we do. We're going to imagine good things, and that's why we're going to live our life with love. We'll see you guys on the next video. Bye for now. Well, before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to thank our Coffee Club supporters. These are the folks who help keep Fixing My Faith going, and I'm scrolling through them right now. And if you see your name, Thank you for standing with us. But here's the thing. The best way you can support us is absolutely free. Over almost 60% of our viewers are not subscribed. So if you've been watching and getting value out of these videos, hitting that subscribe button tells YouTube to share this with more people who need it. So subscribe, like, and share. And we also run a completely free community. It's called xjwfriends.com. That's where you can find it on the website, xjwfriends.com. And then on the website, once you go there, there's a link to the private Discord channel. And that's where people have a lot of fun. People share their stories, they get support, and they can connect without judgment. That's what happens there. There's also people that will help coach, life coaches, counselors. There's all kinds of support at XJW Friends. And if you're waking up or just need to talk it out, that's where you want to go. So here's a link on screen in case you want to find it. And we also put a link in the descriptions of all of our videos. You can just go right down there and hit the link to the Discord community. So whether you are supporting through the coffee club or just clicking, liking, and subscribing, it all helps spread the message. And we want you to know that we appreciate you. Live your life with love, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.